Chair Slocum, are you ready to start the meeting, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
No problems.
So I'd like to call the meeting to order. The time is exactly 6:30, punctual. And I think we should begin with a roll call if we could. Now, do I call the roll or do you?
I'll take care of that for you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And Atherton. Belmont. Brisbane.
Present.
Burlingame. Colma.
Present.
Daly City. East Palo Alto.
Yes, I'm here, Ruben Abrica, stepping in for Lisa Gaucher.
Thank you, sir. Foster City.
Here.
Half Moon Bay.
Deborah Penrose, present.
Thank you. Hillsborough. Menlo Park.
Cecilia Taylor, present.
Thank you. Millbrae.
Ann Schneider, present.
Thank you. Pacifica.
Sue Vaterlos here.
Thank you very much. Portola Valley.
Craig Taylor here.
Thank you. Redwood City.
Kaya Aiken here.
Thank you. San Bruno.
Rico Medina here.
Thank you. San Carlos.
John Dugan here.
Thank you. San Mateo.
Rob Newsom, and I'm new.
Thank you very much, sir. South San Francisco. Woodside.
Paul Gold here.
Thank you. And Supervisor Slocum, we do have a quorum.
Very good.
Also, sorry to interrupt. Hillsborough is present. I just missed that.
Oh, thank you.
And Supervisor Slocum is present and new. So before we move to public comments, maybe one of the staff could introduce to all of us the new members. Maybe just go down in alphabetic order.
So we do have a new member for Atherton, Diana Hawkins.
Manuelian.
Oh.
Manuelian. And I am present. Sorry, I had my mute button when you called before.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the conference. We have a new committee member for Brisbane. And we have a new member for Burlingame and Colma.
I'm Colma.
We have a new member for Portola Valley and for Redwood City.
Yes, Kaya Aiken, here I am.
Welcome.
And a new member for City of San Mateo. Oh, as well as Woodside. So we have approximately half of the committee are new members.
As well as Hillsborough, a new member.
Yes, will you be a temporary replacement or are you the new appointee to the
I'm
committee?
the new appointee, Sophie Cole, Vice Mayor Cole.
Thank you very much. We'll make that correction on our roll sheets.
Very good. Welcome, everybody, and extend a warm welcome to those new members, including myself. And it's good to see Ruben Abrica from East Palo Alto filling in for, I think he's filling in for Lisa Gaucher. So nice to have him here tonight. I don't know how you handle public comments, but do we have public comments?
I do. I raised my hand.
Oh, yes, we do have a hand raised for public comment. Public comment is generally limited to 2 minutes. So if you'd like to proceed.
Thank you. My name is Carlisle Ann Young, also known as Sid Young, here on the coast side, and I reside in the unincorporated area of the county known as the Mid-Coast, which includes the towns along Highway 1 between Pacifica and Half Moon Bay, such as Montero, Moss Beach, Princeton Harbor, El Granada, and Miramar. And our 2020 combined population per the U.S. Census was 11,740, compared to 11,795 in Half Moon Bay. And we have been concerned about evacuation for many years. The last time I attended the ESC meeting was before COVID, back January of 2020, where I met Chief Cox, who was at that time assigned to get Zonehaven up and running. And since that time, we have had the 2020 CZU lightning fires, the storms of January 2023, including a sinkhole and a lane cave-in at 2 different places on Route 92, a car-sized boulder, and a landslide on Highway 1 near the tunnel. And on Monday this week, sadly, the coast side experienced the county's first mass shooting. Partially in the unincorporated area off San Mateo Road and partially within the Half Moon Bay city limits. At that time, when schools were first letting out, the middle school on Kelly Avenue released the students to walk home or to the nearby library, all while an armed gunman was still at large. The text message that I received from SMC Alert at 3:42 merely said, heavy police activity on Highway 92 between Highway 1 and State Route 35. Please stay out of the area and use alternate routes. We now know that the incident began at 2:20, and by the time the SMC alert went out, the gunman had left the farm on 92 and driven through town and shot 3 more people at 2125 Cabrillo Highway South. And then he was spotted sitting in his car in the parking lot near the sheriff's substation, but that's directly across from the middle school where he was then apprehended by detectives. I think in the alert that we received, there should have been a mention of an armed murder suspect on the loose. Please don't sanitize an incident like that, because schools and residents should know when to take necessary precautions. And for those of you helping to plan for the emergency evacuation process countywide, please do not forget to include any representation from the unincorporated Mid-Coast. Someone who has, someone from the 2 advisory boards, perhaps the Mid-Coast Community Council or PMAC Pesadero Municipal Services Council on the South Coast, need and should be part of that process. As a CERT member, I attended the recent Zoom presentation on evacuation by Sean Norman. Of course, I attended virtually because I didn't want to drive over 92. But he was from Butte County, and he seems to really understand rural evacuation needs. If it left me feeling pretty on edge that the Mid-Coast does not seem to have a community center or any designated areas to take refuge in during events such as a tsunami, an earthquake, or another fire, especially when we have no representation on this council. So maybe you'll consider letting some of those advisory councils serve on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly.
Oh, Mr. Matei, can I ask you, is there a limit on the time for public comment?
Yeah, there's 2 minutes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't see a timer, so I couldn't tell how long I was talking. I'm sorry if I went.
No, it's fine.
No worries, no worries. Is there other public comment, or was that it?
I see no other raised hands, sir.
Okay, maybe we could take just a second. It occurred to me, I don't know the staff around the table. Maybe we could just go around the table and introduce ourselves, especially because there's so many new members.
I apologize for that, sir. Don Matei, I'm the interim director here at DEM.
Jeff Norris, one of the emergency management coordinators.
And Kevin Foyles, I'm one of the emergency management coordinators as well.
Hi, Kevin.
I'm Chief Tony Blackman here on assignment from Department of Emergency Management with San Mateo Consolidated Fire.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to the agenda item, action to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda items. There are 2 matters under this particular section. The first is to approve the minutes of the September 15th meeting.
Sir, we can do that by roll call individually for the both elements, or we can take them collectively if that's whatever your preference.
I would do them collectively, but Rico, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move to approve both action items on setting the agenda and the consent items.
I'll second.
Thank you
Been
very
moved.
much. We have move and second. We'll roll call again. Atherton,
Aye.
Belmont, Brisbane,
Abstain.
Burlingame, Colma,
Aye.
Daly City.
Daly City, aye.
Thank you, sir. East Palo Alto.
Yes.
Thank you. Foster City.
Yes.
Thank you. Half Moon Bay.
Yes.
Thank you. Hillsborough,
Yes.
Menlo Park,
Yes.
Millbrae,
Yes.
Pacifica,
Yes.
Portola Valley,
Yes.
Redwood City.
Abstain because I'm new.
Thank you for that. San Bruno,
Yes.
San Carlos,
Yes.
San Mateo,
Yes.
South San Francisco,
Yes.
Woodside,
Yes.
and Supervisor Slocum.
Yes. Mr. Matei, is there a lawyer present?
Yes, sir, there is. Peter Cruz is here virtually.
Peter Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Slocum.
Good evening, Peter. Thanks for joining us. I'm just wondering if rather than do roll call votes, can we just do without objection sort of approach?
We can't, Supervisor Slocum. I think the way you just observed it's the way that it's kind of been done the last year or so that I've been involved, but that's a perfectly reasonable new approach as well.
I was just thinking of saving a little time there for everybody.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda, item 3, which is to discuss the creation of a subcommittee of ESC members to review past years' emergency incidents with the intention to report back to the ESC with recommendations to improve both communications and resiliency planning. And I think Ann Schneider is going to brief us on this matter.
Thank you. And thank you, Vice President Supervisor Slocum. You've got quite a set of titles. If the old timers on this committee forgive me for repeating some things that I've said over the last year, I'll try to take it from the beginning. First, I want to recognize that our county staff and our emergency services staff have been almost in a continuous set of incidents for about 3 years now. And we haven't in all that time because they have been so busy, from fires to air pollution to flooding. We've just been in one incident after another. We've never really had the time to debrief what we might have learned from things. That said, both when I was mayor in 2021 and then last year, Millbrae itself, just using Millbrae as an example, went through a set of our own smaller disasters. And we had communication issues, not so much with our fellow cities, but a little bit with a fellow city, but with the regional agencies that control a great portion of my city. So if you give me the allowance, I'm just going to tell the story. In October 2023 through 2025, we had an atmospheric river that caused 3 major flooding areas in Millbrae. And one of them, due to a pump, our sister city, we share a pumping station with Burlingame. The pumps had been removed and Millbrae Avenue flooded. And what happened, I was mayor then, we had 2 other major floods in the city at the same time. Our staff was out, but we asked Caltrans to close the freeway exits and entrances, and they did not. So all of us who've been mayor, you get phone calls from unhappy people. And I got a lot of phone calls from saying, why didn't you close the exits? And I checked with my city, we had asked, but it didn't get closed. And then throughout the next year, there were fire prevention efforts that impacted property both in Millbrae, but belonging to the parks or SFPUC or CAL FIRE. And these actions went on, and they noticed other cities, but even though we're the access road into them or we're downwind of the work, we weren't given any notice. Or for all of us, and this happened to many of our cities from Atherton up, when Caltrain had a bad car that was catching fires all the way down the Caltrain tracks. It caused 2 fires, one that almost triggered an evacuation in Millbrae, and yet it didn't go on SMC alert. It didn't come to me as our city emergency contact. It didn't go to our city manager. The residents were alerted, who then told me. It just showed that our communication isn't where it could be on that. And I'm really glad to see the evacuation plan. And then here's too with SFO. My heart goes out to all of your cities that flooded this year. We were badly flooded in 21 in 3 different incidents, including one where there was a loss of life of 2 people. So my heart goes out to all of you. But we would have been in the same boat, except Brian Perkins of Congressman Spear's office finally got SFO to work with us to clear out a canal that had not been cleared out in at least decades. And I later on can show you just 16 feet wide by 8 feet deep of built-in sediments. And Brian, thank you, bless him, finally helped SFO to cooperate with us. And almost all of the 1 1/4 mile canal was cleared out except about 1,000 feet. We had just minor flooding into garages in that neighborhood. In one house, our brand new councilwoman, her house flooded, but only up into the garage. So we're very grateful for that. However, on the December 31st rain atmospheric river of 2022, we asked SFO to man their pumps. We have 2 pumps, they have 2 pumps. And they told my staff why. And they didn't turn the pumps on. And then later on, we had some staff there. And finally, the next day, got SFO to turn the pumps on, which again prevented us from flooding. So from my perspective, and I cannot speak for the rest of you, but I'm guessing we could use a good debriefing of how we are communicating in all of the various disasters, and then how to do prep work. Again, the reason we didn't flood badly is because of the resiliency work done with a regional agency that does not do a hazard mitigation plan. I don't believe, and please staff correct me, they don't clear their plans with our plans. And although I'm really glad to see SFO mentioned in the evacuation plan, which would have a huge impact on San Bruno and Millbrae if they evacuated while we're evacuating. So I just think this is the time that we get a smaller group together. We talk about how we might improve communication and basically then talk about regional agencies that have a big impact on how safe our communities are. And for Miss Young from the unincorporated area, you might be in the same boat as Millbrae. Our major landowners are regional agencies, basically the County of San Francisco, and they're really difficult to deal with. But we hope to improve that. So I would love to see the formation of a subcommittee to work on this. I see former member Janet Borgens back in our day with former member from Pacifica, I'm just going blank. We were worried about how to get our people that need a special assistance, and that's in the new plan. But I think bringing in people like Janet with her new hat to talk about special assistance, we can really get better for the next disaster. And we really need to do the work now before then. So thank you for that time.
Thank you for the presentation, sharing your thoughts. I open it up for discussion, and I'm going to get up for just a second because my lights are going off or something's happening here. Excuse me. But open it up for conversation.
We do have a hand raised for question.
Excuse me, Mr. Norris, as current vice chair, can we please take the board members first?
Yes. So Deborah Penrose.
Yes, thank you. I just think it's a brilliant idea, and I would be happy to serve on the subcommittee, but if other people want to, I don't need to. I think it's a great idea. I think we need someone from the coast on the committee, however. Thanks.
Okay, we have a former member of this committee, Janet Borgens.
So thank you very much, and thank you, Mayor Schneider, for including me in this conversation. I would love to serve on this. Currently, I represent the Commission on Disabilities, and I would love to bring that topic to this conversation. So if there is a space for me, please include me. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, it was Sue Degree, former mayor of Pacifica, but who is also a staffer of Parka. So pulling in just all of our people, our special needs. I'm sorry if I'm not using the politically preferred term at this moment.
You are correct.
All right, anybody else, please?
Ms. Young?
Oh, thank you. And Ann Schneider, thank you for mentioning that, you know, we do have issues, especially we've been trying unsuccessfully for about, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years, probably since the fires, to get the Devil's Slide north section where it goes through the eucalyptus grove cleared of debris. And because as the person, I don't know if any of you attended that wonderful seminar that they held yesterday, but Mr. Norman said that when they tried to evacuate Paradise, nobody had coordinated with Chico, and all those neighbors just flowed down into Chico, and we would be doing the same flowing to Pacifica. So, you know, it would be great to have some coordination, but I don't know what kind of plans exist. Maybe you already have an evacuation plan for the whole coast side, but I am not aware of it. So thanks for bringing that up.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but the whole zone haven that's going to be discussed later in the agenda is actually learning from the Paradise experience and how to evacuate so that the downhill people don't block the uphill people. I think probably all of us know at least one or more people that lost their homes and or lives in Paradise. So it was a huge lesson learned that led to the creation of Zone Haven. And I'm taking away staff's place on that, but
actually, I think Zone Haven took before that. Zone Haven came in right before that CCU fire. But I do remember they had to put out alerts saying, please don't anybody go down using Highway 1, because they were still using it for large animal evacuation and for the first responders to get down Highway 1. So they're trying to keep the looky-loos out. But those things need to be all written down and actually coordinated. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just respectfully suggest that if we have public comment, that you get 2 minutes and that's that. But let me ask you this, Mayor. I think you have three volunteers, I think. I'm not sure if that's enough for the subcommittee or what your thoughts are.
I think that's great, having worked with Janet and Mayor Penrose, and with the current experience that Half Moon Bay is going through. I think that's a great start. I know we might come back to you, Chair, and ask if we could get some of our regional entities to join us with that, because I truly think having Caltran at the table and improving that cooperation when we need to close freeways, that's an improvement thing. And there might, I mean, the other cities, you're still dealing with your disaster. We came through. So as cities get a chance to catch their breath, we'd welcome more people. But I think that's a great start. And I thank you.
I'm just wondering out loud, maybe this is for Mr. Matei or the lawyer, or for you, Ann. Would it be possible for a Board of Supervisors member to appoint a staff person to represent on the committee?
I think so. To be honest, I've been on this committee about 7 years. I'm sure Mayor Medina's been on a little bit longer than me. And Lisa from East Palo Alto, I think we're kind of we're the old timers now. We don't do a lot of these, but I think having the right people at the table is what's important.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Slocum?
Yes.
I've been on since 2006. Don't want to date myself. But yes, I've matured. I've gotten older. But what I was going to say is, sir, usually through the chair has that discretion of that those type of opportunities, if that's what you wish.
Yeah, you just look more distinguished, Rico.
Thanks, Warren.
In that case, I don't know if she's on the line, but I have a new staff person. Some of you may know her, Susie Castoria, who used to work for Supervisor Groom. Is she on the line?
I am here.
There.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm going to volunteer you.
I have been voluntold, sir.
to serve on this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're so welcome. I didn't realize you were so gracious, but thank you. Appreciate it. That's very good. And I would try to make it when I can. I'm interested in this, but I just, I know that Susie will make the time and she'll be a great addition. So thank you. Now,
Excellent.
I don't know if there's any other discussion on this, but do we need a motion, Mr. Attorney?
Can I make a comment, sir? It's
Sure. Yeah.
I think this is a great idea. I think it's very good to do. I think that what we can do is, if you want us to facilitate some of the meetings and get people to come to these meetings as far as Caltrans and the contacts we have, then I think that part of this too that's brought up, we do have an active hazard mitigation plan that was signed in February 2021, where all the cities agreed to, and there is also districts, it's 37 entities that are involved in that. And along with the plan that I'm going to explain later, the hazard evacuation plan they're working on, they kind of work side by side, but we do need public input, obviously, and this would be a form of that public input. And they're welcome to all the meetings we do have, to be honest with you, on this stuff. So I open that up, and if we can be of any assistance right now, it's a little tight for us because we're going through all this recovery stuff, but we're willing to, look at it and help them through the process. Because ultimately, if we're looking for a study or a plan at the end of this thing, they themselves, you have the authority to hire a vendor to help with the process, and that would be out of your funds that we have in reserve if you want to pay for it, if that's what you want, if that's the way you want to look at it. But we'll help.
I mean, one thing I'd like to just say about the subcommittee is that, and Mr. Matei and I spoke about this the other day, I'm really concerned about the coastal areas, both incorporated and unincorporated. During the storms, there was no telephone service, no internet, the boulder in the road, the sinkhole, and so forth and so on. So I just hope that as a matter of outreach, Jeff and Mr. Matei, that we can find a way to get some folks from both the incorporated area and the unincorporated area to share their stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I make that available to the folks so we can help out a little bit.
Yeah.
So just clarification, I think that's great, but this subcommittee would still be driven by members of the Emergency Services Council?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Just to clarify, we work for you folks. That's what we do.
Okay. So to kind of be like being on the Finance Committee again, I think that's the only other one. We had Mayor Councilman Sylvester and I were and Mayor Medina part of a, believe it or not, a mask subcommittee before COVID hit because of particulate pollution from the fires, but we never quite got off the ground. So this one I have to for my own city's well-being, but for anybody else that has any of these regional players, how we incorporate them is really important. And then the work that Janet is doing, Ms. Borgens, on that to make sure that we're getting all of the people who need that extra help. So I'm excited. I thank you. Do we need a motion to create the committee? I think.
That would be for Peter. The Peter Cruz. Peter, you here?
Yeah, no, I'm here. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I know that it was said for discussion about the wisdom and effectiveness of creating the subcommittee. It sounds like obviously there's sufficient support to move forward. So I think the motion can pass, and then we can fill in the details as far as who else is going to participate, unless you guys want to have further discussion about how many members you want now.
I just as soon do the motion now and let the subcommittee think about and talk about, who they want to have come and share experiences and so forth and so on.
This is Karen Cunningham, and I would happily make that motion.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
And Mr. Slocum, maybe your idea on as in lieu of the roll call is a great one.
Let me then conduct that. Are there any objections to the motion as presented?
No. So motion passes. Moving to item number 4, it's approve the RFP for the all hazard evacuation plan and following San Mateo County procedures to enter into a contract with the selected vendor.
Yes. Thank you very much. For the new members, what this is, we've been working on this for a little while, actually about a year, is that as we searched through and heard some of the comments from the community, in that people were unsure of how to do things, and what we did was expanded it. We used Zone Haven. We conducted a lot of training with Zone Haven so that we forced that out basically to all the communities, because that's going to be our key evacuation instrument that we use. And so all hazard is everything, right? Tsunamis, earthquakes, flooding, fire. There was a focus on fire because we believe that is a high risk and the speed at which they move, right? And so when we're looking through for plans, some cities have them, some cities don't, evacuation plans. There was no cross-checking or crossover. Some of the other things we saw too were that, and people were doing a great job trying to remove some of the vegetation around these, the areas that would be used for evacuations. We saw some lacking of safe zones that people could stack in case there was an emergency and they couldn't get out. The other issue we've been dealing with is schools. Do you evacuate? Do you not evacuate, right? And in some of the areas of the county, the roads are very narrow and thin. So we came up with the idea that there needs to be some kind of base plan for everybody, not only on how we're completing the removing vegetation, but also how we're going to evacuate. We've done some work, and the Chief Blackman is here, with Zone Haven using what we call a sandboard to replicate fire movement, giving the air the time of day and stuff like that, and having police officers or police supervisors and battalion chiefs train in that throughout the county. And so it gives them a quick look at and how much time and speed that the fire is moving and conducting evacuations. And it is true, downstream has to be moved quicker. But the idea is there's no real good plan. So our idea was to have the cities, ultimately, once the plan is written, to look at this and agree to it, similar to that they did with the all hazard evacuation plan. All hazard mitigation plan, right? And so we have buy-in. It takes some work and it takes some time. There's been, 2 meetings a month that I know of regularly, and Tony's been teaching this thing and talking to folks and so on. Again, trying to bring that cohesiveness together of everybody. I think we have it, to be honest with you, but it's the time to write it down. Unfortunately, we don't have the bandwidth to do that here because this is really a full-time study. Our estimate that it could take up to a year. They have 2 years to complete it because we use some examples from Northern California, Sonoma, Mendocino. They have some great plans we looked at, and we thought, let's format ours to theirs. And so when we talk about evacuations, and just a question we get all the time, how do I get my child out of, Portola Valley if there's a major fire, right? And that's where do you evacuate or do you shelter in place? And that's been a big discussion at a lot of these meetings. But as we move forward, and one of the things that I was tasked with is to come back to the board, the council, with an RFP, which I did. We were already allocated in the September 15th meeting that we had the $375,000. I also have some grant money that we can put into that also, because I think it may cost more than that. I'll be honest with you, because we're asking them to do a lot of things. We're asking them to look at those major thoroughfares, 92, Ralston Avenue in Belmont, the Millbrae Avenue, Burlington, all those major thoroughfares that can get up to or out of those very wooded areas. So what I have here is an emergency plan, RFP, I should say, that was reviewed by 14 different people in San Mateo County, to include fire chiefs, command level police representatives, from Emergency Medical Services, City Manager, and the San Mateo County Fire Safe Group. And so we came up with 15 basic, what we feel are high priority objectives in that plan to look at. And again, it's a plan that crosses, all the county. The only thing we're looking for is approval to move the RFP forward and to go out following the county's procedures to hire a vendor for this. I'll take any questions if anybody have.
Questions? Comments? Ann? Oops, you're muted, I think.
Thank you. I think Mr. Mayor Froman was ahead of me.
Okay, Mayor?
All right, thank you very much. Just a couple clarifying things and questions. Item number 8 on the list in the scope and task 4.3, are those designed to identify choke points or points where the egress areas aren't large enough to handle the density of population behind it?
So that's task 4.3, right, on page.
Right.
Okay. A lot of that stuff is, because we don't know. These are written kind of generally because we want them to, to study specific areas, right? And so it's kind of general modeling. We leave that up to the vendor, how they're going to do that and the information they get back to me. We've already identified some stuff that I think that we will ask them to do. So, for instance, like, in an emergency or a fire, Hillsdale Boulevard, how can we get people out there? So we've got some of those things already kind of tapped into it. But that's the stuff we're looking at exactly.
All right, because I think it's important to note, and I think it's covered here fairly well about areas where intersections or choke points aren't big enough to handle the amount of traffic that's necessary and what might be possible. The other thing I didn't see in here is we are starting cycle 6 of RENA. We know what cities are tasked with for adding residential units. We don't know specifically where those units must go or will go, but I think in most cities on the peninsula, we have a pretty good idea that they're going along El Camino or along the Caltrain corridor. It'd be interesting to see how those numbers added into the mix might impact things, because that will make the plan last potentially 8 years longer. The idea that 8 years from now, that plan might be obsolete if all these units are built. Let's see, is this a time and materials contract, or is this going to be here's the amount and this is what we're going to give you?
Well, we would like to see what they're going, how they usually present it, that this is what it costs for the roadway study, let's say, or that kind of stuff, right? So that's kind of the stuff we would look at and see what the total is, because I would imagine something this big, you're gonna have to subcontract that out to other vendors, right? If that vendor couldn't do that kind of work, they'll subcontract that out for us, right? And so we'd like to see where that's going. We want to look at that.
Okay, so just a few recommendations you have in task 3, 4.4 and 5, or 4.4 and task 5. Those are the ones I noticed right off the bat. All have meetings. And it says in all 3 of those areas, it says a range, 1 to 2 meetings, 2 to 4 meetings. The concern I would have is that they might quote you on the 2, and then we have a change order later. I would much rather have those wherever you have those. I'm guessing that there's some rationale behind the thought that if it's a 1 to 2, then we say up to 2 meetings. If it's 3 to 4, then we say up to 4 meetings, so that we know that if they do anything up to the 4, it's covered. Less likely to have change orders, which I don't know about other council members, but I'm not a big fan of those things.
No.
And the other thing that I didn't see mentioned in here, and maybe I could have missed it, is any discussion on the use of public and school transportation options. In the event of an emergency, depending on the time of day, the time of year, our school systems have buses that could limit the number of vehicles, or Samtrans, Caltrain, depends on what the situation is. those types of things should be considered as well.
Right, we do have like the number of buses that the districts have. We do have the, you know, Samtrans. That would be all configured into that stuff. But here's the thing is the time, right? If the fire's an hour away or if the fire is 6 hours away, it's a big difference, right? And so that's, you know, so that's what we have to think about too. It's not a perfect plan either, right? So it's a good plan. You want to get through with it. So everybody will, you know, be involved in it. If you want to be, if somebody wants to be a member of that group, I'm more than happy to have a member of the Emergency Service Council.
No, I know that these things are very difficult because you don't know where the emergency is going to happen. You don't know what time of day or night it's going to happen, and you don't know what resources are going to be available at the time. So that's all of that is up in the air. But if we have ideas or if they identify some benefits, these are the things where I know that you guys do this on a regular basis, have contracts in place in advance with these types of organizations, so that if the situation presented itself and they were one of the best solutions, that we're ready to call them into action. That's all.
But you know, I'm just going to say that, and I've said this over and over again, and this is going to come down to that first sergeant on scene and that first battalion chief on scene. Those are the folks that are going to actually making the calls. There's no other way that you can do this, and I think the fire community knows this, police know this, so that's what we depend on to make those initial evaluations. So that's a reminder.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you. I have a number of these, but I want to support what Mayor Froman said. On Millbrae Avenue alone, Burlingame has in construction 2 new housing developments that are just a couple blocks from Millbrae Avenue. We have our own project that will be having its grand opening in March. So that's 400 housing units, another almost 500 on the other side, and another 600 or 700 coming online, we hope, in the next couple of years. So I think that comment of looking at future residents and or future businesses coming in would be an important aspect of that. My questions, again, I'm really going to sound like I'm beating up on SFO. We just approved our general plan for 2040, and we had baykeepers. We have a love-hate relationship with baykeepers who has sued us over sewage outflows, but their staff brought up something new in the environmental disaster area. For those of you who don't know, I have 2 environmental science degrees, so this is kind of in my field, but they are talking about groundwater flooding. And that means with sea level rise and salt water and then fresh water, the salt water coming in underneath can push fresh water up, and you may have flooding in parts of your communities that never experienced flooding before. I wasn't able to get that into the general plan, but we're going to get it into an amendment. They also said, given Millbrae, so Baykeepers was commenting on Millbrae, that this could change the direction of toxic plumes. So the fuel leaks at SFO, which happen at any airport, could now start draining into Millbrae, which could cause groundwater issues, or San Bruno next door to us uses well water. So it's a whole new hazard that we might want to think about. That doesn't have anything to do with this plan, the evacuation plan, but it has to do with our mitigation plans. So just throwing that out there so that we all know, great, one more thing to worry about. But I loved seeing SFO in here. We're grateful for that. But then when I went through the task items, I didn't see where SFO would be blended in. And I'm just putting this information out there so that you know. SFO moved their Uber and Lyft location. And what that did would cause 3 months of complete blockage of Millbrae Avenue, because they moved the parking lot for Uber Lyft drivers right on Millbrae's border. And if we're working on evacuation plans, they also did a recent shift, and we had more backup on Millbrae Avenue border, which doesn't just impact Millbrae or Burlingame, but all of the Uber Lyft drivers, many of whom come from the Central Valley and may not be connected into our system. That's a problem. And for all of our cities, I'm looking again at Mr. Fruman, we're cut through cities. We have traffic driving through us from all over the region, and how we connect them in if they're driving through us at the same time we're trying to evacuate. So I would just make sure that staff, as you work on this, I don't have any specific language for the RFP, but maybe look at cut through traffic. I know Councilman, former Mayor Cunningham has mentioned it happens in Brisbane, it happens in Belmont, that we make sure that other traffic is accounted for when we're trying to evacuate. And then finally, I think I go to a BPAC meeting and 2 of my neighborhoods that are single access, single egress communities are finally recognized. I really liked seeing that in there. It is my biggest worry that I have 2 neighborhoods completely cut off from being able to get emergency services vehicles in and out if the trains close all of the train access. So I'm happy to see that. I'm really happy to see this plan, but all of us should be thinking and making sure our single egress communities are represented in that RFP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor.
Thank you. And it's Vice Mayor, but I appreciate it. I agree with Mayor Snyder and also Mayor Froman's comments, but something to add to it. Menlo Park City Council agreed to annually update the hazard mitigation plans. I think that is important, especially with all the development. On the north side of 101 in Menlo Park, we have a little over 3,000 apartment units being built. We have broken ground at least on 3. Just one comment I want to make. The other is, what do we do in the interim? I'm concerned about disaster preparedness. And so I'm concerned about what we do within this 2 years while we're working on this plan. Thank you.
We are definitely, and I can ask Tony if you talk about the training we continue to do with law and fire and those people involved in evacuations. We learned a lot. We've tested the system a couple times to see where we have to move, what we learned from them. But Tony, you want to say a few words on Zone Haven and what we do there?
Yeah, the training that we've been doing, we've been doing it for 4 years now. In 2020, when it first came out, we started doing agency level training with the different agencies around the county. And then in 2021, we took it to a little more regional level. And of course, that was done virtually. And in 2022, we started doing tabletop exercises, as Don Mateo was talking about, using the sand table and some sim tables and doing exercises that involved dispatchers, police, fire, as well as emergency managers. And moving forward to this year here, we're going to start working on doing some training that's going to be on a train to trainer level to kind of get that more people out there, more training to get the ability out there to increase how many people we reach essentially. And additionally, we're going to use it on some functional exercises this year as well. So I think it was mentioned earlier that it was the Zone Haven's been used in the CZU fire, the South San Francisco Sign Hill fire, Edgewood fire, and of course the late December, early January storms of this year, including even the concerns about San Mateo Creek, flooding the banks and such. So it's been used extensively. It's working well. We work with Zone Haven, the company itself, on feedback and making some modifications and changes. They're a great partner supporting this, and our training's been going countywide, and we've been used essentially as a model for many other counties around California and beyond. So it's program seems to be working really well, and it's just a matter now. Another bigger component is getting enough public awareness out there as well that Zone Haven could be used for the public. So there's some outreach that needs to happen as well. So it was a great tool, works well in the emergency operations centers as well as out in the field. And it's just a great tool where everybody can see the same place, the same information of where the threats and hazards are.
You're kind of extending that a little bit. During the floods and the road closures, we use that kind of as our countywide map. And so we were putting the road closures with the cities that wanted to participate on the Zone Haven map. And that would be, the public could view that. If there was a problem there, we put the markers up on the roads that were closed. So that was kind of, we never thought we were going to use it for that, but we got the idea of doing that. And that was kind of a thing that the county manager wanted us to focus on, is alerting the public. So we kind of use this as a different tool. So it's very robust in what it can do.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you. I just want to bring to your attention, I put a link in the chat to everybody, which the flood maps from very reliable sources, including the USGS, et cetera, et cetera. I suggest that if you've not seen this before, you copy this link and pay very close attention to what's the information that is in there. And I hope it's helpful to people who are planning for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Other comments, questions? I just had 2 quick things. Mr. Matei, this is about issuing an RFP. No vendor has been selected. Is that right?
That's right, sir.
And I didn't catch the amount.
It was, when we were at the September 15 meeting, I asked for 375,000 out of the reserves that you have. You have a pretty good size reserve fund. It's, at the time, it was close to 1.3 million in there. And to use it for your purpose of studying these things as a city and county, because that would benefit everyone. And we're going to use that for a couple of other things also. If, for instance, we think that the new committee that was formed needs something to write a research or hire somebody, we can use that funding for that, separate of us asking for any money from anyone.
Okay, I see Jeff Norris shaking his head yes, so that must be so. All right, so public comment. Let's take public comment. There is a hand raised, I see. Go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I typed it in the chat, but I think it's really important when you're doing your study to consider the coastal communities. When we have visitor traffic on a nice day, it just gets crazy. And I don't know if anybody who visits would know what to do in a tsunami or where to go to shelter in place or anything. So that's something that Pacifica, that affects the whole coast side. Thank you.
One of the things we're recommending in the study is that we put sirens throughout our high, wooded areas in the county. We do currently have tsunami sirens. We've talked about posting digital reader boards in some areas so that if you're coming into the coast and you've never lived there before, you could see that you're entering a tsunami area. If you hear a siren, evacuate, whatever they may say. So we've had some ideas out there, but we're always looking for more information to how to expand that to the community out there.
Thank you, Mayor Froman.
Thank you, Don. Is that the signage was the other thing I was going to bring up when the young lady made a comment about the coastside visitors. Will that be part of the recommendations that come out of this report as to strategic locations for whether it's using specific signs that are in place or recommendations to add additional digital reader signs?
Well, that's kind of twofold. We want to expand that out there. We talked about putting just stationary signs currently because it's not out there. You're entering a tsunami zone, you're leaving the tsunami zone, just that in itself. But digital signs that we can operate or people can operate, and we can put messages out there for folks. Like, we have all this, these rogue waves come out, and we do have a lot of water rescues in this county, believe it or not. So, just those advisories, but that will cost. And I don't know what the cost is for that, but we've talked about that here internally. We can have them look at it.
I think it'd be worthwhile for them to, if especially with choke points and the comments that we do have visitors driving through, especially with San Francisco to our north and the airport, having some strategic signs, whether some are already in place and others we might need to add to help guide people out of the area would be beneficial.
That's really kind of a community choice because some, folks don't like signs in their community, but I think in key areas going in, I think, and leaving, I think that would help.
And also there's been a lot of science that has gone into sign design for accessibility, making them readable by individuals who are perhaps colorblind or who have visual impairment. So there's a lot of new science coming in that's going to come into play in this project.
Okay, looks like we have two hands raised. Am I looking at this right?
That is correct.
Okay, who's first here?
Sue would be the member of the council.
Okay.
Thank you. One of the things that was said, Sid said, was about the coast. If you were on the coast on a Saturday in the heat, there's nowhere anyone can go. It takes about 40 minutes to drive through the 6 miles of Pacifica when it's hot. So I think I know we're talking about emergency preparedness, None of those people live here. They're all coming from somewhere else. I think the signs are good, but eventually it's going to involve other road emergency evacuation areas because there aren't any on the coast. And that's a huge problem. I mean, look what just when 92 slid, that brought every person through Pacifica. Then a boulder fell. Now where are they? Those people are really stuck. So I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm going way off topic, but I'm just like thinking about the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Want to hear it?
Yep, thank you. Last but not least, maybe last, Janet Morgans.
Thank you. Thank you for this conversation. I appreciate the comment made by Jeff regarding someone who may be sight impaired or colorblind. So as you're moving forward with this, and I apologize, I have not seen the plan, but please do consider those that are mobility challenged, sight impaired, hearing impaired, all of that, because having the sign is great, but if they can't see it, it's no benefit to them. So as we move forward with this plan, please do consider the disability community and how they would evacuate in a safe manner. And then one comment to Mayor Sue, I would like to say, you know, if it's not a tsunami, you consider a water rescue. There are opportunities for that if need be, but definitely is an issue because I love going to the coast and I don't live there. And I'm not a good swimmer, so I'm not going to jump in the water. But anyway, thank you for this plan. This is amazing.
Thank you. Are there any other comments by council members? There being none, maybe somebody would like to make a motion.
I'm happy to make the motion. I'm trying to pull up to the agenda to get it correct. This is a motion to approve.
Item 4, yeah.
I'll just say approve item 4 is sufficient.
Well, I don't want to speak for Peter, but I'm just was sharing with you it's item 4.
Yeah, I just thought approve the RFP for the all hazard evacuation plan and following San Mateo County procedures to enter into the contract with the selected vendor.
Second.
Before a vote is taken, may I ask to offer a friendly amendment about adding information regarding planned or anticipated growth that may not already be in there?
Yes.
Yep.
Accepted.
Thank you. All right, so
And with that, are there any objections to proceeding with the motion as stated and amended? And hearing none, Supervisor Slocum, it passes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Moving to item 5, which is an update on EMA, and it says TBD on the presenter.
So no, Jeff Norris, the current president of the Emergency Managers Association. The Emergency Managers Association continues to work in cooperation with the Department of Emergency Management, representing the cities and the special districts within the county. It's a very strong relationship that has been moving forward and been in the last few weeks very much taxed by the winter storms and very supportive of the efforts that it takes to get through these storms, protect the safety of our community, and now proceed in our disaster cost recovery. So we'll have a more substantial report at the April meeting. We have a number of projects that we're getting off the ground now.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions of Jeff? There being none, move to item 7, which is an update on PG&E outages, etc.
Okay. So as far as PG&E outages are concerned, we've kind of worked with Frank Frioni with to kind of address the impact on the coast. I can send the number of PG&E calls regarding, but as far as as far as PG&E I don't have the actual data associated, but we can go ahead and send that. But we've been kind of working with Frank to kind of address the calls. We've been getting numerous phone calls from a variety of residents from the coast side, letting us know kind of their situation, without kind of any kind of power. So we've tried to coordinate back and forth with Frank and the PG&E team to kind of make sure that's been addressed. And so at this point in time, things are being mitigated. I think we're in a better spot than we were, and I can provide the data associated with kind of where they're at after the meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Matei,
So in conjunction with that, I just want to kind of brief out on behalf of DEM kind of what we kind of took care of and kind of how we, kind of reacted or acted in response to the storm. As we know, it was a 5.8 inches in the 24-hour period beginning early on New Year's Eve. Initial impacts, Holly Street in San Carlos, Pescadero Creek Road, Bayshore, Redwood City, Harbor Boulevard, and Belmont, to name a few. Evacuations required at a trailer home in Belmont, and then the Moonridge Farmer Housing Community. A total about 100 residents initially were required to have sheltered, temporary sheltered in hotels. So the initial response on 12/31, DEM staff, as well as directors and county leadership, showed up at 0950. Staff arrived at the Regional Operations Center to kind of gain situational awareness. Several meetings with the National Weather Service folks. The initial major areas of focus included San Francisco Creek, Cordilleras facility, as well as 1903 Bayshore and 100 Harbor trailer parks. At 11:45, DEM staff began conducting initial assessments on these areas, going door to door to kind of gather information. 1903, when I was on site alongside my coworkers, it was completely flooded. We were only able to, kind of knock on 5 or 6 doors because it was up to our hips in water. At 1400, DEM conducted a second OA brief, operational area brief, began preparations for evacuation. HSA and Cairn shelter teams worked to set up shelter with event center staff. 100 Harbor went to the event center. 1903 Bayshore went to the Redwood City Veterans Center as kind of a TEP, if you will. Cordilleras facility was not evacuated, but it was on close watch. Luckily, we didn't have to do that. And then Moonridge evacuated 8 units on the coast side. And then at 1600, we had a third brief. Buses were coordinated and staged outside 100 Harbor. We had water rescue and dive teams. Tony's team with the San Antonio Consolidated, as well as the sheriff's office, were ready to kind of get folks on board to transfer to the event center as well as hotels. DPW stayed up, keeping the road-ons kind of open, and moved Cairn shelter trailers to the event center. We sent a wheel alert to the mobile home park advising for evacuation, and we continue with the transportation. And then at 2000, planning and building kind of officially red tagged the mobile home park. As far as kind of the overall stats kind of associated with the storm and the county's kind of response, we secured local hotel rooms from residents displaced by flooding. On New Year's Day, DEM staff came in, and we were lucky to procure 24,000 sandbags, because the moment we were able to do so, they were sold out. So we had filled sandbags on site that were arriving on a recurring basis on a 5-day period. So that allowed us via 213-R to distribute X amount of sandbags per their request to each of the cities via kind of our email. We dished out about 22,000 sandbags filled with 51 transactions. And then just kind of as far as, data associated, we had a 6-position call center at the EOC was set up with multi-language capabilities to help facilitate the mass amounts of calls coming to the EOC. We were fully activated and operational from Saturday, December 31st through Sunday, January 15th. That included a nighttime and a daytime operations, 12-hour periods. And then from 12/31 to 1/17, about 195 SMC, 195 SMC alerts were sent with 3,051,504 total recipients. And over this same period, 4 AWEA alerts were sent. And 238 HSA or 238 folks were evacuated via HSA. And then from 12/31 to January 10th, PSC received about 552 phone calls for down trees, and the average phone call volume was up about 100%. So it's kind of a major kind of impact for us. Obviously it was a real collaborative opportunity with the cities and counties. And I thought we were able to kind of really react or really respond kind of effectively considering the situation.
We've been going 26 days straight. There's been somebody here.
Thank you. Appreciate the information. And thank you for all the work. I might have gone out of order there, I realize. Is that right, Mr. Matei?
Yeah, we're good. It's okay. It was just kind of an overview of what we've been going through. It's all right. You know, I think we got the information out. We're still working with PG&E. There were some major outages on the coast. We learned a lot about cell phone coverage and vendors out there. Okay.
Yeah.
We had a line that was cut at one point by contractors from PG&E, and it caused a problem, I'll tell you, for a while. And we were concerned about 911 going down, but we didn't have as bad of a problem as we did. We did send out messages to let people know, but there was people out for a while, that I can tell you. I know at one point, and we asked for the information, we had, I could be wrong with the number now, but I want to say we had people who were out of power for 3 days, about 2,000 people, somewhere in that range that were out of power, probably more. Because we found these little enclaves in the smaller areas of the county. And we did have some great help from Honda Fire Brigade and Cal Fire with some of the stuff we were doing. We came very, very close to evacuating Pescadero, very close. If Dave Cosgrave and one of the deputies didn't get down there and take a look at it to say that it's high, but we're okay, we probably would have to pull out an evacuation there.
Thank you. Craig?
Thank you. Do we track AT&T and Comcast outages? Because that's one thing we noticed in Portola Valley is shortly after the power went out, we also lost cellular and internet connection, and that's a pretty critical infrastructure for emergency communication. Thank you.
So there actually is very active tracking. It's now mandated by law in California that cellular carriers and wireline carriers have to report their information through Cal OES to the local public safety answering points and dispatch centers. We have access to that map as well here at the Department of Emergency Management. But what was happening during the course of this storms was a tree limb would fall, and it would not just take out the PG&E wires, it was also taking out the fiber trunks that support these cell sites. So it shows the fragileness of above ground power and data.
Yeah, I guess in our situation, it seemed also like they just didn't have 72 hours of backup, which my understanding is, isn't that a requirement?
That was a proposed requirement by the California Public Utilities Commission that has gone back and forth between the Telecommunications Industries Association and the PUC several times. It does also bear some with local municipalities because of the need to have fuel and generation capability.
So is this council the right place to put put the squeeze on these guys?
I don't know. You know, we had some difficulty in contacting folks. I understand they were busy. Part of the thing we forget sometimes that there is wind, and that they don't like to put their folks up on trees and on poles when it's really windy. Some of the wind even affects the cell phones because the antennas get moved a little bit. But Jeff is exactly right. Which tree fell down? It was a branch that came across and cut the.
Well, one of the most significant dropouts of service was almost the entirety of Highway 84 lost Verizon service. Even though they have a distributed antenna system along 84, it was one tree limb that fell in Woodside that basically took out the next 16 miles of service. Then before the storm was over, more tree limbs fell to where it was now a leapfrog process of patch of fiber, get 2 or 3 sites back, patch of fiber, get 2 or 3 sites back, have another tree limb fall. The service providers were actually doing a lot of work restoring for broken fiber. to get those sites back online.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
John, do you mind if I make a comment before you go? I'm just curious, Mr. Matei, I know there have been conversations going on with AT&T and Verizon and Comcast and PG&E with the county executive and the supervisor that represents the coast. And I'm wondering if you're a part of those discussions. Have you been in the room to sort of address the problem of, or the question of putting the squeeze on? I think our county executive is doing that, but I'm just curious if you were in the room to add your perspective.
No, I haven't been, no, but I know that we've been passing up information up the chain as we get it, type of stuff. We're kind of in the responsive mode, trying to fix it now and find out what we can do to fix it right now.
Okay.
The other side of it is kind of a decision of the folks above us, to be honest with you.
Okay, very good. John, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, as it relates to PG&E, I think there's two concerns for me. Is we had several areas, well, I don't know if it's several. I know there were a couple areas, at least in the county, especially on the coast, that were out for a significant period of time. And there's other areas that were out who are regularly out. Under certain circumstances, these neighborhoods are almost guaranteed to lose power. And those are the ones that seem most preventable. That if you know that every time there's a storm, these sections go out, you should know the root cause of those problems and be able to fix them. And those are things that hopefully we can communicate with PG&E about. Go ahead.
We did ask the questions basically as you proposed them to us, and the person we have, Frank Ferroni, is good person. Said that they're still calculating and doing all the stuff what went on. So we did ask the questions that you asked to them, but we didn't get the answers back thus far. We will eventually.
All right. Well, there are a couple other things really quick. People are talking about the dangers or the risks of having above ground utilities. Come to Foster City. Undergrounding isn't always the best option either. You get water in the vaults and the power goes out. So there's challenges both directions. There were some reports, and I can't remember if it came from the county or if maybe it was things on the PG&E website, that some areas were without power because of access, that PG&E or service providers didn't have access to a property, whether it's private property or whatever, to make the necessary repairs.
This actually is a very common problem. Highway 84 had extended periods of outage as PG&E and tree clearing crews were leapfrogging their way along 84. The one needed the other before they could do their work.
I guess where I'm really going is this is kind of my same philosophy on exercising our rights. I think it's great that people exercise their rights until they infringe on someone else's. In the same case here, if somebody's property isn't maintained to a point where the utility can easily get to their equipment, and by doing so, it affects others, there should be action that can be taken to ensure that those, I guess they would be easements to get onto people's property, are maintained. And if there's common area issues where we know that we only need to contact 100 people or whatever, that would be great. But if those can be determined in advance and try to address before we run into these problems, that'd be great. It's really sad that they can't get to their own equipment to put everybody else back online.
Part of it is the condition of the roads, to be honest with you, and the heaviness of the equipment they have, right? And the amount of water it got, right? And so I think that was part of their problem. But I don't know how to solve that one on private roads that are dirt, but that's part of the problem they had.
No, I think that's understandable. They need to be able to get their equipment. I'm not saying it's always a private property owner responsibility, but I'm just saying if there are those types of places where there's a key piece of equipment that really affects a lot of people, whatever can be done to try to make sure that it's in a condition where the equipment that's necessary to get there would be great.
I just, because we would get the call too sometimes. We're trying to figure out why they couldn't get there, right? And they just couldn't get the equipment down the road,
And some of those things happen. I appreciate that too. Thank you.
Yep. Karen, thank you.
So I put another comment in the chat. You know, at my home, we have a professional weather station installed because we do live on a hill here in Brisbane. And we did have winds at 57.6 miles per hour that sounded like hurricane kind of winds. And just want to bring to the fore that, you know, we're talking global warming, et cetera, that these weather events are probably going to become more severe. And as such, I think we need to be thinking about our infrastructure improvements based on that as we move forward together. It was pretty crazy up here. We lost a lot of trees. We had a lot of PG&E responses because dead trees were falling. So I think, you know, within our communities, we've got to be a little more diligent about if there's a dead tree, we have to act on it. But just so you know, I mean, I haven't experienced 60-mile-an-hour winds in Brisbane before, and this year we did. So it's just a point to think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other council comments? Okay, I think we have a public speaker.
I just wanted to briefly say I attended the Coastside Fire Protection District meetings virtually yesterday, and they had better resilience on their cell phones because I believe they had Starlink, and also I think at Pescadero they took a mobile device down there to boost their reception, or they would have been screwed. But I also noticed that they passed an ordinance. It's stronger than their usual weed abatement that they do when they annually, mow certain lots that are vacant that the owner hasn't been servicing, and they put it on their property tax bill. Now they have a fuel load abatement thing, and there was at least 20 parcels that they were going to go in and take care of. So I know you guys are all in different cities. We're in unincorporated, so we have a bigger fire district, but you could go that route to make certain neighbors cut their hazardous trees. But I'm just going to put that out as a point that you might consider. Thank you.
You know, just a thing aside real quick is we were in contact with the National Guard, and we had requested 2 of their evacuation vehicles. I don't know if they 2 for the Bay side, I think, and 2 for the coast side. Was that right?
We placed the request, but we withdrew those requests when we found out about the more severe taking place in Santa Cruz County. Those 2 vehicles were literally rescuing whole neighborhoods.
Okay. If there's not any more on item 7, we'll move to item 8, which is an update on Caltrans and Highway 92.
Highway 92, was it open today?
So as of this morning at 7:30, they had restored 2-way traffic through the area that's been single laned. And they did do a very creative bypass, taking advantage of the 2-lane stretch on the west side of 35. So Tony, actually, that's his regular commute.
Normally is my commute, but as we talked about through Pacifica, I'm one of those guys that leaves the coast side and go around through the tunnel through Pacifica to come to work now, just based on this heavy traffic.
Any questions on item 9, or item 8?
Just during the storm, we had a few phone calls with the Caltrans, just to let you know, finding out what was going on and seeing what they could do.
Okay. Item number 9, update on Zone Haven training.
I really think we kind of covered that regarding
A couple more topics, quickly, one on the Zone Haven, just to let everybody know on the Zone Haven training. We currently have 464 users throughout the county that are trained up to speed on Zone Haven. That's a combination of law enforcement, fire service, emergency managers, and dispatchers. And one of the tools that thing can do is when we have people trained like our dispatchers, when folks call 911 in an emergency and want to know if they should be evacuated or not, and they're not familiar with the tool, our dispatchers actually pull that Zone Haven map up, type in the address, and can let people know on the fly immediately whether they should be evacuated or not, based on what the incident commander's intentions are. And a few things that we have coming forward, and there's been some conversation, a lot of conversation about evacuations and such, is this tool also, some of the training will be coming out, is a new addition to it, is they have added a traffic model simulator. So you can, in your community, based on the information you have in there on how many cars, time of day, that type of thing, is you can put in and get some ideas of what that traffic expectation should look like. So, so Mayor Fruman, one of the things you were asking about is, can you find those choke points? This is one of the ways to flesh out where some of those choke points might be and give you a sense. It's just a tool. It's not 100% accurate. The information is just as good as what we put into it, but it's a great training tool that we're going to use more. So local responders and such will have an idea. So when it comes time to make those evacuations, we're talking about the downhill before the uphill, upstream, downstream, and in the order which we'll do it. Give everybody the next level of training. So we'll have a very organized evacuation process that is the most efficient as possible. And you can change things on the fly. So you can have that hot day in Pacifica and see what that might look like versus just a regular foggy day in Pacifica and see what that looks like. So there's additional layers of it that training is coming out, and that's what we're looking for. So we're also, the last piece of it is it's not just for fires, as we talked about, as Don Mateo was talking about, but it also, simulations that are on there for fires are also going to start including in the near future floods, dam inundations, and hazardous material releases. So it's hitting there for all kinds of hazards. Lots of training coming out for that. Any questions?
I think Vice Mayor Taylor has her hand up. I'm not sure.
Yes, thank you. And my question is, will there be any training for the public?
Yeah, so the training, there's two parts to it. So the training really is outreach, let the public know that the tool is there, it's available. So we can have what we basically call just-in-time training. So as the SMC alerts go out, the WIA alerts, the mass alerts and warnings go out, they can actually be sent a link. So whoever receives that message, as it says, a text message, email, whatever it looks like, they can have a link that will direct them right to Zonehaven. And it's pretty self-explanatory and it's very intuitive. The other side's coming out is right now, it's just a web-based program. There's going to be an app coming out, and with an app, then there could be push notifications that get sent out. So people could sign up for example, you can say, hey, I'm in a particular zone, or I want to follow a particular zone. And that way, if you are at work and you're driving home and you were not in a hazard zone, but you drive to the hazard zone, your phone would then light up and say, hey, by the way, you're going into this particular zone. So the outreach is really designed a little more at the local level right now. It's Coast Side has done quite a bit of outreach, as well as other communities have done through mailers, through billboards, and other avenues. Is there another question there from?
It's just a comment in that my friends live in unincorporated Emerald Hills and the Woodside area. When they had that Edgewood fire, I saw on Zonehaven, both of their neighborhoods were being evacuated, or their zones. And I called them both and neither one of them knew anything about it. So I think you do need more outreach as far as letting people know that Zonehaven doesn't work unless you're signed up for SMC alert. And one of the couples, they're in their 90s and they had no power at that particular time. So they didn't even have their TV on them where they might have known about the fire. So I don't know. I think you do need more outreach to let people know that it's really important to be signed up for both SMC alert, which I guess then couples you straight into Zonehaven, just so people know.
Excellent point.
Yeah, excuse me. I just wanted to back up to the Vice Mayor's question, and I didn't quite understand, but it sounded like her question was about training for the community, and the response that I heard was it's just-in-time training. So when there's an emergency, people would be trained. Did I get that wrong?
If I may, Tony,
sure.
The Zonehaven public portal is so simple and so intuitive that once one finds their location on it, they have an address tool, they can go to the map, and if a zone has a setting on it, it literally tells you the message. Why is that zone not in a normal mode? It's very intuitive. in terms of public training, there really isn't any. It's how they reach the tool.
But in the RFP, there is a section there about public outreach that they have to do. They have to provide stuff to people, and that is addressed in our RFP for the all hazard plan. So there's a section there that the vendor would be responsible for coming up with a plan and how to better inform the general public. That's in that article.
Vice Mayor, do you want to continue there?
Yes, please. And thank you, Supervisor Slocum. So my follow-up question is just looking at the total usage, and I know that there was a recent grand jury report about SMC alerts and the number of folks signed up. Because the number is so small is the reason why I'm asking about the training, because if people are trained, even if it is simple, maybe we would have more people participating in it. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions? Yes.
And I've said this a couple times in the past, but and I know it's a big process, but if you could make SMC alerts opt out instead of opt in, so that everyone got SMC alerts. I understand that people have phones, cell phones from other areas that they've carried over, but at least if you could get the percentage of people on SMC alert without having them sign up for it.
Right, our current numbers are about 1 in 7 of the general population of the county. And we actually do have 2 opt-out tools built into the new SMC alert. The reverse 911 system, which uses all landline telephones, and the WIA system, the iPause from FEMA, which unless a person goes into a menu on their phone and tells it not to receive notices, if they are in the footprint of that message, they will get it.
You know what percentage that is? That might be a good number to give. How many people receive a WIA?
Oh, the percentage of people who receive a WIA, nobody knows. The cellular carriers have an idea, but the science isn't there. Basically, if you're in the polygon, you're going to receive the message. The FEMA is working with the cellular carriers to try to get some of that science back from them. But to date, when you send a WIA message, you just say it will be phones within this polygon.
Okay, one more question? Comment?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, coming from the business that I've been in, I have to say, we have to do it over and over again to the same venues over and over again. So when people on my city council and my staff say to me, how often do we need to do something? We have to do it over and over again. And you guys who are not in marketing or promotions or whatever are probably thinking, but we put the message out. We have to do it over and over and over and over again to every venue that we can to get the message out there. And that's the only way that we're going to win, because we are all so busy, as you know, stretched so paper thin right now. People are not paying attention to so many things. So any avenue, any venue, every venue, over and over again, we need to get these messages out. This is how we do Zone Haven, or how we all think the right way to get the messaging out there is. We're not doing a good enough job at it. Not saying we didn't do a great job. I think we've done an amazing job given the last few years of crises we've had, but we have to do better, and we have to think, oh, we did that. No, we did that, but we have to do it again and again and again and again and again. And that's the message that I want to push to everybody in the community, all the staff, all the people who are on our city councils, over and over again. We might think it's being boring and overbearing. Too bad. Most of the people are not paying attention every single minute of the day that we're sending out a message. So can we please do that? I hope I get a thumbs up from somebody. Thank you. Do
All right.
you guys get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Please, let's just, can I have thumbs up from staff too, please? It's really important.
I do it at every meeting and every newsletter we send out, we have it in there. We still don't have a huge percentage.
Right. No, exactly. And so, everybody's busy, families, this, that, and the other. They're not paying attention to what you and I are saying. They don't care what I say most of the time, or you. So we have to say it over and over again. So let's please do that and be as boring as we can. Thank you.
Excellent. Item number 10 is an update on the transition from Everbridge to RAV.
So the Everbridge to transition, the state of California opted to go with Rave Mobile Alerting as the statewide alert and warning platform. We have been really at the forefront of the transition, moving 120,000 subscribers, having picked up another almost 16,000 subscribers in the last 30 days to the new system. It does work on a polygon basis, so it is completely compatible with the iPause WIA system for additional notification. We've imported 320,000 landline telephones, and to date, we have run,
What was the number you had for alerts?
195
total SMC alerts.
since the transition to Rave, with more than 3 million messages delivered.
Thank you. Item number 11, update on funding discussion regarding the replacement of the Hazmat 14 engine.
Right, that's been in play for a while. We already have the model we want. We're gonna change it from environmental health side to bring it to the DEM side of the budget. And we're gonna create a line item that cities will be contributing from the reserve, about $75,000 a year for about 6 years, because the price is really going up on these things. They're over $1.2 million. And the one is, Tony knows, how old is it now? Hazmat 14.
I believe it's 10 years old.
10 years old, yeah. So it's going to be, pretty soon will be, time to replace that. And so the funding structure is going to be put into the JPA, because ultimately it's a county vehicle. And as you know, we split everything 50-50. So I want to make sure that we have that funding stream, so I don't have to go searching for the money, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Item 12, update on the status of negotiations of County Hazmat and San Mateo Consolidated.
Sure, we were kind of on a pretty good stretch. The chief and I have been in contact. I haven't talked to him for a while. We've kind of all been busy with these storms. I think we were going to meet the first week of January, I think. There's been a lot going on, but we were going to re-meet on that again. We're going to, once this thing calms down for us a little bit, we'll restart that. Hopefully by April meeting, we'll have a resolution to it.
Very good, thank you. Council comments and or announcements, anybody? There being none.
Sorry, Supervisor Slocum, Peter Cruz here. Sorry to bug you folks. I just wanted to make a quick kind of housekeeping announcement that it's very possible we're going to have to conduct our next quarterly meeting in person, depending on whether the remote ability for Brown Act bodies gets cleaned up legislatively. So I just wanted to put that in the back of everyone's mind that we might have to go old school for the next meeting, but we'll of course circulate that information as we near our next meeting. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
This will actually be the first meeting that will be held in the Regional Operations Center. So I'm actually kind of excited that that possibility exists.
All right, our next meeting is, according to my notes, correct me if I'm wrong, April 20th. Is that right, Don?
I believe so, yes.
That is correct.
Okay. Peter, do we need an emotion to adjourn here? Is that how you do this? Or do we just say we're adjourned?
I think we normally just say we're adjourned, but I like your new practice of hearing no objections. That's all, folks.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Good night. Thank you.